things started. Hello everyone, hope you all are well. We're going ahead and getting this thing started. Y'all should be able to hear me pretty well, I hope. We've got 12 viewers right now. That's pretty good. I'm glad to have that many viewers on right now. Thank you so much for coming on. I know that this isn't my most popular stream, but it's always nice to have folks on to watch. Let's go ahead and check the poll results. Let's see how that turned out. And Tale of Tomaki is winning. I am very surprised. And Reanimated, no votes at all. Wow, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that. I'm a little quiet. I'm a little low. Okay, let's see if I can't fix that. Hold on, guys. Let's see if I can't fix that. That should fix the problem. Let's see if that fixes it. I remember last time I used my mic on OBS, I was using it for the live stream of the Warriors Den, and I had to turn my mic really low so that y'all could hear the Warriors Den. That's why. So that should fix the problem. So let's see if that works. That should fix the problem. Alright, we're down to 10 viewers. Alright, alright. Well, we'll go on even if we only have 5 viewers. So that should do it. Alright. Well, welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this Raven's Roost, this chill and read stream. I am Raven. There are no games tonight. We're not playing anything. We are just going to be chilling out and reading some of my stories together. This stream is not popular. I'm surprised. I'm not. My reading stuff has never been very popular. Very unfortunate as it is. But, I mean, hey, tell other people about it. Tell people to come by and watch, and I would love to have them. In fact, I've been thinking about a way to redo this whole series. What I'm thinking about possibly doing is, y'all know that on my second channel, I read some of my audiobooks. What I'm thinking about doing instead of that is reading, like treating the reading stream as just reading one story all the way through until I'm done, until it's done, and just doing that non-stop, and then saving all those reading streams into a playlist, so that way each book that I read has its own playlist of reading streams that y'all can go back and watch. It's something that I'm thinking about doing. I'll talk it over with Lark more and see if we don't like that idea, but we'll see what we do. Alright, so anyway, let's not waste any time. Tonight we are starting off with Helping Hands. For those who do not remember, Helping Hands is a very old story of mine. Story of a girl going through college, but she has polymelia. And for those who don't know what polymelia is a real medical condition where you are born with more limbs than you're supposed to have. In most circumstances, being born with polymelia is just a simple matter of having the limbs removed as a baby because, well, they're mostly just lumps of flesh with nothing else to them. But in this girl's case, Jenny's case, she was actually born with limbs that are actually functional. They are actual, real, functioning limbs. So they can't just be removed. So she is living with 2 extra arms that other people would not normally be living with. So she has it kind of interesting. I really like her story. I'm going to pull up a picture in just a second so that you guys can see kind of what she looks like. Here we go. Finally found the folder. Let's use this picture. This is a good one. We'll use that picture for tonight. All right. All right. Okay, so let's not waste any time and get right into the reading. All right? We left off on chapter 9. Let's do it. Sam was taller than me by about a head. He had a short blonde hair, well, nearly blonde. Anyone looking at us would never guess we were related. We looked so little alike. For as long as I'd known him, Sam always presented himself like a soldier, and I suppose I always admired that about him. Despite this, he always had a smile on his face. He wore a t-shirt and jeans for our meeting, and when he saw me coming, he beamed. He'd wanted to meet at the Fats Cafe near my campus. It was an easy walk to get to, so it wasn't a problem for me. When I ran up to him, he opened his arms and embraced me. "Hey, cuz," he laughed. "You doing okay?" "Sam, yes, I'm okay," I laughed, his chin bumping against the top of my head. It amazed me sometimes just how tall he was. He pat my head and easily pushed me off him and looked me over. "Well, you look great," he smirked. I blushed and looked down at myself. It was nothing more than a four-armed shirt and jeans. Mom had cut holes into most of my sleeves, or at least had them tailored for me to wear. This one was red with white edges on the sleeves. It was a very plain shirt, but Sam had a way of making me feel unique. I suppose that's why he's been on so many dates with girls from his high school. "Well, you look good too, Sam." Come on, is that any way my poet cousin would be describing me? Come on, use that infamous diction of yours, he teased. I just rolled my eyes in response and gave him a playful shove. "My cousin is likened to that of a hemorrhoid. He is a pain in the butt that I can't avoid," I laughed. "Ooh! Now that was harsh, inaccurate, but still rather clever," he laughed. "Now come on inside, let's get some grub. I want to hear about this roommate of yours. And you mentioned something about the soccer coach on the phone?" I'd called Sam earlier yesterday to let him know about what had happened to me with the soccer coach taking an interest in me for the team, and how I'd made 2 new friends, one of them being my roommate. I wanted to tell him all about it. We were seated swiftly, and I picked up my menu, feeling suddenly rather hungry. Sam didn't even bother. He already knew what he was getting. He got the same thing every time he came here. It was his favorite restaurant, after all. I set down the menu after deciding and gave a polite smile. "So, have you been, Sam?" I asked. Well, school's been a real struggle," he grumbled, rubbing his temple as if trying to rub a persistent headache. "I have all morning classes, and don't even get me started on calculus and biology, and first year then I already have to prepare for a quiz." "Well, that's not fair. Who said school was supposed to be fair?" "Ha! It's not insurmountable." Now who's using the fancy diction?" I teased. "Well, I learned from my cousin. Other than classes, though, I suppose things could be worse. My roommate's a bit of a nuisance, honestly. Stays out too late and comes back early in the morning drunk and honestly barely able to stand." "That sounds really rough," I replied, trying to sound sympathetic. "Oh, actually, it's hilarious. Just try asking him questions when he's like that. It's great for a laugh." He snickered and tapped the table to make sure I was paying attention. "One time he came in high, like on drugs high, and it freaked me the heck out. I wasn't sure what to do about it, and he was all like just out there." "What? All this in just a week?" I asked. "Oh yeah, this guy is a total junkie, I think. Anyway, so I call up the RA, and he showed up, took one look, he walks up to him, right? Wraps his arm around him and points up at the ceiling fan and shouts, 'Are those bats? Ah! Ah!' Sam screamed and then burst out laughing. And then my roommate, Jackson, he just starts screaming like a lunatic and swatting at the air. I couldn't stop from snorting and laughing into my hands. "Oh my God, that's horrible," I cried. My RA's pretty chill, but when he wants to be, he can be really funny. "My RA's like that somewhat," I said, thinking about David, my RA, and how he helped me with that Travis incident. "Yeah, you mentioned something about your RA. What was that all about, anyway?" he asked. I started to answer when the waitress arrived to take our order. "Oh, ribeye for me and a house salad with a sweet tea, please, and whatever she wants." "I'll just have chicken fingers and fries." The waitress just stared at my arms a minute, and I had to snap my finger to get her attention. "Oh, I'm sorry, what?" "Chicken fingers and fries," I grumbled. To drink, tea. And, soup or salad." "Baked potato soup," I growled. She finally nodded and hurried off to go whisper to the other waiters and waitresses about me. Sam just frowned and leaned over, patting my hand. Hey, don't let it get to you," he ordered. "I can't help it, Sam. That's all I've gotten since coming to college. People staring at me and making comments. Like that Travis jerk and a few others." "Travis?" Sam asked, his brow furrowing. I spent the next 10 minutes recounting all that happened to me at the cafeteria and after. When I told him about the note from Travis and how they'd acted, I felt a slight sense of pressure at seeing his face twist into a sneer. "That piece of... no cursing." "Dog scat," Sam smirked. "Well, keep going." I complied and went on to tell him about David coming to talk to me and how he's nice. How he'd seen Sam sneer turn to smile, and there was something very teasing behind his eyes. "Oh, well, this RA's at least a little bit impression, huh?" Sam asked. "He was so encouraging and, well, he didn't care about my arms at all. In fact, he said they were cool." "Well, the guy's not wrong," Sam laughed. "I'm glad you like him." "I do. And there's also my roommate and that girl Andrea I met. I told you about them, right? Over the phone?" "Yeah, one's a big anime lover and the other uses a voice synthesizer," Sam asked. "And both think I'm cool, too." "Well, duh. How many times do I have to tell you, Jenna? You are cool. I mean, Let's face it, everyone is unique somehow, right? But how many people can say they're like you? It's not something to be embarrassed about, Sam said firmly. He didn't even notice as a salad was put before him by the waitress and a soup in front of me. Look, I think that it's great that you're finally making friends and connections. You finally needed to. Well, thanks, Sam, I giggled, tasting the soup. Delicious. Sam followed suit with his salad, and for a bit we ate in silence and in peace. I was certain I was getting glances and stares, but I didn't think about that. I focused on the food and Sam's words. After we finished and we pushed our bowls aside, Sam leaned forward, crossing his arms over the table. Now, about this soccer thing you brought up. Oh, right! So I spent the rest of our wait recounting all that took place that led up to the coach offering me a chance to try out. Sam just remained quietly smiling and nodding through the whole story. So that's what happened. I go in on Friday to try out for the team, but... But what? Sam asked. I don't know if I should. I just go here and... I'm not sure I'd be any good. What if I mess up? Then you mess up, Sam answered. Gee, thanks. I mean, what difference will it make? Sam asked. I mean, you don't know how you'll do, and you won't know until you actually go and give it a shot. If you don't go, then guess what? You won't ever find out. But I'm scared of failing, and even if I do well, is this where I should be? Do I need to be doing any kind of sports in college this early on? Well, that's something you have to decide for yourself, isn't it? Sam answered. You gotta ask if this is something you'd enjoy. And if you ask me, though, I'd say that it's worth at least considering. But if you don't show, well, you'll never know, like I said. When our food arrived, I fell silent as Sam dug into his meal hungrily. Gee, do you get enough food at college? I asked. I don't get to eat out so often, so I need to enjoy this while I can. Then slow down so you can taste it, I laughed. Sam swallowed and shook his head. Well, thanks, Mom. Any other words of advice? Sure, chew before you swallow. I was kidding. Well, I'm not. What if you choked? I scowled. You've got 4 arms. Your Heimlich maneuver's the strongest on earth. I facepalmed with one hand and placed my head in 2 more as I wrapped my mind around how easily I walked into that. You are so... I know, Sam laughed. I laughed right along with him. This was how it always was when Sam and I hung out. A combination of warm and tender discussion and very goofy antics. He was more like a brother than a cousin. When we finally finished, Sam began to pull out his wallet and fork through some bills. Hey, you know something? He asked. I don't think there's anything you can't do if you set your heart on it. You managed to convince your family to let you go to college after being homeschooled so long. You made 2 great friends within a week, and you even got a crush on your RA. I do not have a crush on, oh, I'm sure he's a nice guy. He continued, speaking over my outburst, though I could feel my cheeks glowing red, and I quickly covered my face with all 4 hands to hide it. And now, you're getting the chance to join a soccer team and be part of something awesome. But, I'm not surprised by it at all. You always had it in you. You just never saw it. Sam, you're going to go out there Friday, you're going to show that coach what you're made of, and you're going to join that team. And if you don't make the cut, well, I'm going to go over there and have a few words with that bonehead. Or would you rather let your boyfriend do it for you? He joked. It's not like that, Sam, I squealed. Okay, all right, you say so. But, thanks. I can't believe how nervous I am about all this. Hey, I'm here for you, Jenna. Anytime you need something, he said, standing up and helping me to my feet. Now, when you go out there, I want you to think about all the things you've accomplished. Your friends, your school career, and your good-looking RA. Sam, stop saying that, please, I begged, gripping his arm. You know I tease you because I love you. I know. I love you too, cuz. Now, let's get you back to campus, he said with a wide grin. You mean you'll drop me off? Sure. Personally, I want to meet your roommate and this RA for myself. I gotta make sure he's the kind of man you should be dating. Shut up, I cried. Though he was only teasing, I was laughing too. I felt lighter when I had in a while and more excited than before. I was actually feeling excited for what was coming. I was genuinely looking forward to trying out for the soccer team, though something deep in my heart told me there was going to be a bit more to this old ordeal than even Sam knew. It made me excited and yet really nervous. How was it possible to feel such a cluster of feelings over something? Perhaps I should make a poem about it. All right, and that was Chapter 9 of Helping Hands. Next is Chapter 10. Give me a second to take a drink of something. All right. Next chapter, Chapter 10. This one was written February 10th, 2017, to give you guys an idea of how old it is. All right, let's go. The soccer field was actually just like the football field, just with the goalposts taken down and replaced with soccer goals on either side. The field was repainted too, so that the grass was patterned to look like a large soccer stadium. I was in awe in the stands. The lush green grass, the sheer size of the stadium and the field was staggering. Though I'd played soccer with my dad in the backyard, I'd never had the opportunity to play in an actual field. I just watched it on TV before, but that was it. This was so exciting I could barely contain myself. I was wearing my favorite blue tank top that was ripped enough to allow all my arms freedom to move as I needed, along with gray shorts that I wore during runs. As I carried my bags out to the field, I looked around and finally caught sight of a group of girls all stretching and gossiping by the bleachers. Figuring that's where I needed to be, I began walking over to them, anxious to meet the team, but upon seeing me, their expressions were not so welcoming. "Oh my God!" one cried. "What's with your arms?" I paused in my approach and tried my best to disregard the cry. "Look, I was born with polymelia. I have 4 arms instead of 2, I explained as calmly as I could. "My name's Jenna. I'm here because Coach Hogan asked me to come out and try for the team." The girls all looked at each other, silently whispering or judging me. I could practically feel their judgmental stares without even having to acknowledge them. "Well, can you play?" one asked. "Not to sound mean, but wouldn't those arms cause problems?" "They've never been a problem," I defended, feeling slightly more and more concerned about my future with this team. They all continued talking, and I crossed my arms and placed my hands on my hips. "Look, I just want a chance, okay? If y'all don't think I can make the—" "Girls!" I spun around to see Coach Hogan walking out towards us. He blew a loud whistle, and everyone jumped to their feet. "What are you still sitting around for? Give me a lap around the field. Move, move!" All the girls took off running around the field, and I started to follow when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Hogan grabbed me firmly and turned me around. "Not you. We need to talk." I turned to face him, and he stepped back, looking me over. "So you came out after all. I'm glad. How do you feel?" "Really, really nervous," I blurted out without thinking. "Well, that's natural. Now let's make a few things clear before we get started. I'm not going to treat you any differently than the other girls. You have to earn your place like everyone else. We clear?" "Yes, sir," I agreed. "I don't want to be treated any differently." "Well, good. Now I've seen you in action. You're ideal for our keeper position. After you do a lap, I want you to set yourself up at the goal box, and I'm going to have one of our girls kick a few balls at you. I want to see how you perform in a real situation." "Yes, sir." "Good. Now go on, get running." With a hopeful smile, I took off around the field. I ran as hard as I could, pumping all my arms together and bounding on each stride, hope and excitement once again fueling my resolve. When I made it back around, the coach was directing the team to different points around the field to do exercises and fitness training. Some ran to one corner to kick balls back and forth. Others were along the sides throwing balls onto the field for their partners to receive using their heads or chests. When Coach Hogan saw me approaching, he grinned and waved me over. I'm back. I'm ready." "Good, good." He turned his attention to a young black girl with her hair done in long, tight braids. "This here's Iana. She's one of our best forward strikers. She's usually our center striker and will be shooting some goals on you today." Iana reached out her hand and gave a kind but cautious smile as I shook her hand. "I'm Jenna. Nice to meet you," she nodded. "Ready to catch some shots?" "Yeah." The coach followed us to the field goalpost and handed me 2 pairs of keeper gloves. "Put these on to protect your hands. Now I want to see how you handle the keeper's box." I slipped on the gloves and began opening and closing my hands a few times to get used to their tightness and their rigid makeup. After a moment, I nodded and stood in the box, digging my tennis shoes into the ground. Iana was wearing cleats, and I suddenly became aware of how underdressed I was. "Shouldn't I wear cleats and stuff?" I asked. "You're just trying out today. No point spending money if you're not going to get the chance to use them," Coach Hogan called back. "All right, now get ready. Go!" Iana took a running start, raising her left hand slightly to indicate the direction of her kick. And I responded in kind. Instinct sent me dashing towards the left side of the goal until I saw her change her center of balance in an instant. Instead of kicking with her right foot, she was kicking with her left. I quickly stopped myself and leapt back to the right. She kicked and shot past my fingers into the net. Iana gave a satisfied smile and then ran back to grab another ball. I groaned in frustration and tossed the ball out as if it were a rock. "Don't throw it one-handed," Coach Hogan shouted back. "Always have 2 hands on the ball. That way you have control of where it goes." I nodded and threw it with 2 hands on this time, and he caught it. "Go again." Iana let out a grunt and ran at me fast, kicking the ball hard with her right foot. I saw it coming this time and jumped to block, but my hand only slowed it down, sending it spiraling off my fingers into the net. "Darn it!" I cried. "I'm so sorry, Coach. I thought Iana, take 5. The coach called, walking towards me. I leaned against the goal post and shook my head. "Maybe I was wrong, Coach. I'm not cut out for this. I can't catch any of those shots." "Ever played soccer against a real soccer player before?" he asked. I shook my head. "Well, there's why. You need to learn and adjust. You have the talent, you have the skill, you're moving quick, you're light on your feet. But Jan has been doing this for a long time. Give it some time and a few more tries, all right? You're not out of this yet. You're not doing badly either." "Are you sure?" Well, if I wasn't sure, I'd tell you to head home, he shrugged. It's like I told you, I'm not treating you any differently from anyone else. You get the same chance everyone else does. I rubbed my face with my arm and smiled. Thanks. This time when she comes at you, don't watch her feet or her hands. She'll use those to throw you off. Instead, watch her eyes, he hinted. She'll look in the direction she wants to shoot, just seconds before she kicks. Analyze her hips. Focus on her center. Don't let her throw you off, all right? Yes, sir. Good. Let's go again. Iana, you're back up, he shouted. Iana came running back over, and she had a ball in her foot ready to kick. All right. Let's see what you got. Go! Iana took another running start, and my eyes began to follow her feet. Then Coach's words resounded in my head. I turned my attention to her eyes. They were locked on me. It was like playing cards. She was staring me down, trying to catch me off guard. I could tell, but I wouldn't back down. I wouldn't let her scare me. Then in an instant, there it was. In that split moment, her eyes darted to the right. She kicked, and I moved. I felt a satisfying slap as the rubber ball struck my forward right and left hands. As they started to roll back, my other set of hands came up and grabbed the ball as well, using their combined strength to stop it dead in my hands. That's more like it, Coach Hogan shouted. Go again, you're not done. Iana pulled back, and we repeated the process again and again. We continued the same routine. Iana never showed any mercy or leniency. Each shot was designed to slip me up and make me question her next one. There were even moments that I was certain she would faint one way when in fact her fire directly ahead. She was incredibly good at what she did. Dad was nowhere near as good as she was. It was nothing short of intimidation. All right, that's enough, he called. Iana and I were both panting a little, and it was clear we needed water. And I wasn't the least bit pleased. Out of all the 30 shots that she'd made, I'd only saved 9 of them. It was pathetic. I was certain that what the coach would say to that. I approached him, and he had his arms crossed, a stern look on his face. Everyone get some water. We start drills in a few minutes. Coach, I asked, what about me? Go get some water. We'll talk after that, he replied. I nodded and ran past him to the bench where a large cooler was waiting for us. I grabbed a plastic cup from the bin and filled up some water, drinking it down in large gulps, being reminded of the incredible feeling of cold fluid on my tongue. I used my right arm to rub sweat from my brow and my second right arm to brush dirt off my shoulder, only adding to the dirt since there was plenty of it on my glove. Hey, Jenna, right? I turned around to see Iana behind me. She didn't look nearly as sweaty, but she too was carrying a cup of water and was breathing heavy. You did pretty good. You were incredible, I gasped. I can't believe how good you are at that. I'm a little rusty, but I appreciate it, she laughed. But for the first-timer in the keeper box, you weren't half bad. Well, no chance I'll get in now, I said. Well, even if you don't, I think you could still try again next year. She tipped her cup and then drained it, sitting down on the bench. As the girls all socialized and caught their breath, I watched and paced around the grass, as if it would help to relieve the stress. Minutes passed like hours, and I felt great uneasiness as time just slowed to a crawl. All right, everyone, back on the field, Coach Hagan called. We're going to run a few drills, then we'll talk about game plans for next week. As the team hurried to the field, I approached the coach. Do you want me out there too? No, you head home for the day, he answered. I felt my heart fall into defeat, and I placed my hands on my hips to keep them from shaking. Yes, sir. Sir, thank you for giving me this opportunity, I replied, turning to walk away. I picked up my bag by the bench and started to walk away to leave. Jenna, he shouted back. I turned around, finding back the tears. Yes, sir? I'll be sending you a practice schedule. Make sure you're here next practice, same time. And that was chapter 10. Alright, let me go ahead and take that down. And then we'll move on to the Tale of Tomoki. Oh man, I am really excited to get to this. I've been spending the last 2 weeks working on this. Get a picture of Tomoki up there. Actually, you know what? Let's have some fun. Let's put a picture of Ren up there. I want to put a picture of Ren up there. Change things up a little bit. There we go. Actually, no, let's get a better picture. Let's get a better picture. I've got a better one in here somewhere. That was an old picture. Let's get a better picture of her. A better picture, as they say. I know I've got a better one in here somewhere. That'll do. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. We'll use that picture of her. All right. Did I play soccer? Yes, I did. I was a keeper too. Sometimes played defense though. I was pretty good. Although part of that was because I was so big I took up a lot of the goal. I was a tall boy. Very tall. Still tall. I don't know why coaches like dramatics. They're coaches. They're all about that stuff. All right, guys. I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's do this. All right, guys. We left off on Tomoki Chapter 36, rewritten. Ooh, let's do it. I'd seen old space movies with Mom when I was a kid, but I wasn't prepared for this. I was surrounded on all sides by huge black walls with windows on every one of them, looking out into the stars like it was some brand new world. Below us was the planet that I called home. Though, I suppose, given what I knew, it wasn't my real home. The thought of me being so high above my world was something sobering and a little terrifying. All around me were aliens in suits like Hosha's, and I'd been invited aboard. Every one of the aliens gave me harsh or frightened looks, many looking at my tail and giving hushed whispers. Seemed Saiyans weren't popular. Who would have guessed? Hosha stood up for me, though, led me away from them. It was him who'd invited me here, and he had a plan to deal with Daikon in 4 days' time. Well, I was all ears to that. I wasn't the only one on this galactic patroller's ship, however. He'd invited Ren as well, who had helped him track me down. There was another girl here, too. She had tanned skin and long silvery hair with eyes that reminded me of a dog or a husky. Distant, but mystical. She wore armor like Hosha's, but it wasn't as thick, almost like a membrane over her body. She glared daggers at me when she saw me, but said nothing. The last person I was to meet was a tall blue creature with lanky arms and legs and a long snake-like tail. He had fangs in his mouth like a feline and big yellow eyes. He had black hair that fell to about his neck, and he was a good 3 heads taller than I was. He wasn't wearing armor, to my surprise. He was wearing some kind of tan cargo vest and pants, like he was some sort of explorer. After me, Ren and the 2 mysterious strangers were all together in one large room. Hosha spoke, which brought everyone in the room around to look at him. We were crowded now, and the room watched with bated breath to see what he had to say. Everyone, I think it's time we discuss the situation as it stands. As he spoke, the blue, cat-like man began fiddling with the controls of the big table in between us, and a hologram appeared showing Daikon smirking on the disgusting smile. As we're all familiar, the Saiyan fugitive Daikon is on planet. He's powerful, ferocious, and completely arrogant. He doesn't fear any one of us, and for good reason. He knows we aren't a match for him in a conventional fight. I bristled at that. But luckily for us, we may have a window of opportunity to turn the fight into our favor. Oh, Ras, what you got? Before I explain, I think some introductions are in order, Hosha smirked. He turned to the blue cat man. This is Kanasa. He's an associate with the Galactic Patrol. A xenologist by trade, he answered in a soft accent. I study the biological and cultural traits of other races and species. Kanasa is our consultant when it comes to unknown or difficult races. We brought him in to consult about a few things going on with Daikon, and some other things besides. This had me interested. I started to speak up to ask about Saiyans and about my race, but stopped myself. This was hardly the time for that kind of talk. And over here we have Miss Faye of the Bloodstone Pack. She's a Montanzer, and she's here on a completely separate mission, but it will tie into our own. A pleasure, I said absent-mindedly. Speak for yourself, she rumbled darkly. I got the sense she didn't like me, and I had a feeling it had to do with my tail. Well, I'm Renee Frost, but y'all can call me Ren. I represent the Scar Initiative on planet Earth. And I'm Tomoki. I'm a Saiyan. There was a soft hum of disapproval and discomfort, which I brushed aside. But Hosha silenced the room quickly with a shout before turning back to the important matters at hand. So, with that out of the way, on to the 2 problems facing us, Hosha went on. Obviously, Daikon is a real threat, but we've been made aware of a new one. Kanasa pressed a few buttons on the table and a new figure appeared. A woman, tan skin, dark hair, golden eyes, and a fearful expression. She looked a little bit like the girl Faye. Were they the same race? This is Antoinette, a tainted Montanzer. This got another frightened buzz going around the room. Faye winced at the sound and bit her lip. She's been confirmed to be loose on the planet as we speak. We need to take action! This is seriously bad. Can't we just exterminate the populace? I don't get it, I growled. What's so bad about her? Montanzer are a unique race, Kanasa explained. Think of them like pack animals or wolves. They build strict and powerful social bonds. They carry within them powerful energies from the very heart of the moon they live on. But a tainted Montanzer has a corrupted genome in their DNA, a complication that we're still not entirely sure how it occurs. What we do know is that it is akin to an infection like rabies on your world. Rabies? Renee asked. Well, how's it similar? At about 13 standard Earth years of age, Kanasa continued, tainted Montanzer begin showing symptoms of their tainted genome. Dark spots begin appearing on their chest and torso, for example. Over time, these dark spots will grow and grow until they cover the entire body. But that's only a physical abnormality to warn of the actual issue at hand. The true terror of a tainted Montanzer is their bite. Tainted are prone to entering fits of rage or hyperaggression in which they will attack or harm anyone in close proximity. If bitten, the bodily fluid secreted from their maw will transfer the taint to other living organisms. But unlike Montanzer, who can live with the taint for perhaps a few years before succumbing to it, other races, they all have different responses. What happens if an Earthling gets bitten? Renee asked. Are you familiar with the concept of living death? Faye asked. Lesser races like humans become like walking corpses, carriers of the taint to be transmitted to any they come in contact with. Like some kind of zombie movie? I asked. I don't know what a zombie is, Faye growled, shrugging her shoulders. Just know it's a hell you don't want to experience. The danger present if Antoinette infects a human population is real, Hosha said, but that's not the only threat. If Antoinette encounters Daikon, that is the real danger, Hosha said fiercely, and then turned his attention to Kanasa. Dr. Kanasa, what would happen if Antoinette infected a Saiyan like Daikon with her taint? Kanasa grimaced and his tail twitched nervously before speaking. Well, Saiyans are biologically superior to most races. Their bodies do not resist disease so much as they just overcome them. They learn from the pain and difficulty of disease and sickness, and they just get stronger as a result. But the taint is an aggressive thing. It is a disease that does not know how to stop. It's not something that you can just take away like that. This is all theoretical, of course, so, theoretically speaking, if the taint were to come in contact with a Saiyan's biological system, it would be like a permanent steroid to the Saiyan. His body would be ravaged by the disease, but then only grow stronger as a result. Then repeat that process again and again and again endlessly, creating a being of strength and power that, again, of course, theoretically, would have no cutoff switch. And the combination of a taint's desire for violence mixed with a Saiyan's natural inclination towards combat means he'd destroy everything and everyone around him without thought. In other words, again, theoretically, a tainted Saiyan would become an unstoppable monster that not even the Galactic Patrol could put down. The response from the folks in the room was exactly the kind of fear that I was feeling in my soul. Daikon could become that powerful? Faye looked ready to throw up as she hugged herself and shivered. Renee, who usually smiled through everything, was now looking rather shaken, and every alien in the room was howling with horror and terror. Daikon was a threat already, and now he might become literally unstoppable. Calm down, Hosha shouted. Calm yourselves. Everyone calm. The room gradually began to return to some degree of calmness. Yes, the threat of this outcome is real, but we can still prevent it. We have no evidence yet that Daikon and Antoinette have crossed paths, so our first step right now is to deal with Daikon And luckily we have that chance. Thanks to the actions of the Montanzer, Daikon's scouter was damaged, and it will take him time to fix it. In that time, we can move freely without his knowledge. We also know he's taken a particular interest in the Saiyan Tomaki. He indicated at me, and I nodded. We also have a hunch about where he'll go next. He's already warned Tomaki he plans to return to the city known as Shan in just 4 Earth days to finish his fight with Tomaki.
Wait, 2 Saiyans fighting? But why? For what purpose?
Could he beat him, though? Listen! Hosha shouted over the babbling. Tomaki isn't like Daikon. Not by a long shot. Unlike that maniac, Tomaki has been protecting Shan City from freaks like him. But that is not our biggest hindrance. Tomaki can't risk going all out causing damage to the populace. That's where we come in. My plan is to enact an immediate evacuation of the city. The Galactic Patrol will work in tandem with the SCAR organization to get Shan City emptied without the risk of human lives being lost in the crossfire. And if there are no humans at risk, Tomaki can go all out and defeat that bastard. As the room buzzed about this, I thought about the plan. Empty the city in just 4 days. It's true Daikon wouldn't be able to sense it without his scouter, but would 4 days be enough time? And where would they go? And if Daikon caught on? Can he do it, though? A voice spoke up, silencing the room. It was Faye, glaring daggers at me. Can this Tomaki beat Daikon? No offense. I watched that monster kill my friend and mentor without batting an eye. And she was one of the strongest people I knew. Can you really beat Daikon? And that was the question that haunted me. Could I beat him? There was only one thing I had left that might come close to being enough. The Super Saiyan form. But could I use it? Sure, there wouldn't be any people around to get in the way, but would it still be all right? Could I stay who I was? I looked down at my feet in fear and in uncertainty. I closed my eyes a moment and sighed to myself. I didn't know what would happen to me when I went Super Saiyan against Daikon. What would happen from there, I didn't know. But all I did know was that up until now, Super Saiyan had helped me win every battle. And now that Daikon was becoming a massive threat to not just Earth, but the galaxy as well, I didn't have a choice but to at least try. Yeah, I said. I can beat him. Count on it. And that was chapter 36. Next is chapter 37. Let me get something to drink. To shreds, you said. All right. All right, so we are on chapter 37 of Tomaki. This is where things get real. I hope y'all are ready. I'm excited. All right, let's do it. The city was eerily quiet, like the eve before a storm. A light fog fell over the buildings and streets, but outside on the easternmost edge of the city was where the humming and murmuring was. The enormous evacuation had been going on long into the night. Galactic Patrol forces and police were knocking on doors of every apartment and encouraging people to take the evacuation buses out of the city. They had no idea what was coming, what threat awaited in the cool of the morning. Today was the day of judgment, the day a cataclysmic battle for the sake of the Earth would take place, and they had no idea. Throughout the city, Hosha, Melody, Ren, and Faye were spread to different points, wearing radios on their ears to keep in contact, and on the lookout for anything out of the ordinary. They had to ensure that Antoinette didn't get involved and that the evacuation was successful. Tomaki wasn't with them. He was near the outskirts of the city, feeling the energy in the air and waiting to sense something dangerous coming. Anything? Ren growled, helping a married couple into another bus. I am picking up a strong power level. It is enormous, Hosha answered, tapping the side of his helmet, trying to reanalyze the energy signature he was picking up. Where from? Faye asked. Approaching from the north, Hosha answered. I'll bet it's Daikon. He's finally coming. I'm closer to the north. I'll check it out, Faye answered. I don't think you should go alone, Ren warned. You got a history with this guy, right? Ain't a good idea to let your emotions get in the way. And what would you know about it, Earthling? Faye snapped. The plan is to leave it to Tomaki, Ren snapped back. You'd just get in his way. Maybe I don't trust your pet Saiyan to deal with that monster. What did you just call him? Melody demanded.
All of you, cool it, Hosha barked. Daikon is coming any minute, and we can't afford to stand here arguing. Melody, you and Ren keep the evacuation running smoothly. Faye, you stay with me, and we'll inform the patrol to clear the area. But Ren is right. We'd only get in the way of those two if we tried to get involved.
Faye gave an audible snort over the radio. Hosha, Ren spoke up suddenly. Hosha paused and turned his radio. You know these Saiyans better than most of us here. Is a fight like this normal for them?
Why do you ask?
Hosha asked. There was a pause. She wants to know, Melody spoke up, what you think will happen. Hosha kept running towards his subordinates as he replied.
I'd prepare for the worst, he answered.
That Daikon wins?
No. That they destroy the city in their struggle.
It was 6:30. School would be starting soon if it was still on, but I doubted it. I stood in the outskirts of the city. I remembered when I fought Mamaragon. That difficult fight felt ages ago. Daikon, though, he was beyond even that. I stood as the wind blew past my face and the mist slowly lifted from the world. I closed my eyes and tried to relax my mind and senses when suddenly it struck like lightning. I felt a tremendous surge in power and I spun around to see him there. Daikon! He levitated above the earth like a god ascending to judge. His face was twisted in a sinister sneer as he glared at me. He spat at the ground below and aimed his right hand at the nearby farmhouse. With just a mere gesture, a brilliant burst of red energy flew from his hand and struck the building, creating a huge explosion and reducing the farmhouse to mere rubble and smoldering ruin. I winced and turned my attention back to Daikon, who was now raising his hand towards me.
So you're here.
Good, Daikon smirked. He touched his newly repaired scouter and smiled. And your power level's certainly more impressive this time. Still not a challenge, but commendable. Guess your fight with Vokon really did help you. I also don't sense any life forms in the city. Oh, tell me, did you go on a killing spree to try and power up before our showdown? I didn't answer him and he just laughed.
Don't bother lying. I already know. Let me guess. The city's evacuated. Or in the process of it, at the very least. I'm no fool. I'm sure your friends were just trying to stall for time. Make it so you wouldn't be held back by their lives.
I grit my teeth. He already knew our strategy, but that didn't change what I had to do. They don't matter in this fight, I snapped.
You're exactly right, he smirked. They don't matter. Not at all. Which is why they will die. I will remove them from this fight entirely. I said leave them out of it, I snapped. I'm going to destroy this city, weakling, Daikon hissed. I'm going to lay it to waste. I will bury you and every single earthling under its ashes, and I'll leave you alive long enough to watch me do it. Not if I can help it. I flew at him at top speed, ready to knock him out of the sky. All my training had paid off. I was now a rocket cutting through the air with incredible power. He couldn't possibly dodge this. Sadly, Daikon suddenly swung his leg and met my face with it. You can't. I cried out in pain. It was like I'd been hit in the face by a car. His strength was unreal. He didn't have to dodge my attack. He just overpowered me. It felt vastly different from 2 days ago. Had he really been holding this much back? I tried to recover, but he was already on top of me. Daikon grabbed my arm and swung me around and around in a circle and sent me crashing to the earth like a falling comet. He then began pelting me with rapid-fire ki blasts, creating a crater in the earth where I was. It was as if heaven was raining fire down on me. I struggled to get back to my feet, but his attack was relentless. Now do you understand your place, you filth? Daikon roared. You are a weakling, low-class piece of shit, a waste of a warrior, and a disgrace to all Saiyans. He landed next to me and grabbed me by the collar, lifting me up. You don't even deserve to be classified as dirt. He threw me with all his force, sending me spiraling back towards the city. I rebounded myself off the nearest building and tried to recover. Damn it! What the hell did I... Daikon had flown after me, and his fist was burying itself into my stomach. I coughed loudly as blood burst from my mouth, and I crashed clean through a nearby office complex. I smashed through desks, terminals, and then back out of the building. I recovered and responded with a fierce key blast. The blast missed as Daikon dodged to the side and kicked me hard in the chin, knocking me high into the air. Before I could even start to plummet back to earth, I felt him grab my ankle and whip me back towards the ground, flailing like a rag doll. I hit it full force, the ground shattering under the impact. I groaned and tried to crawl to my feet as Daikon hung in the air, glaring at me in disgust and contempt. Pathetic. I actually thought you might give me some entertainment. But you're so busy thinking about keeping this city and its people safe that you won't even focus on fighting me all out. You're no Saiyan. You're not even human. You're nothing but garbage. Scum not worth killing. I'll just bury you under the rubble of this worthless city, he sneered. But where to start? Any preferences, weakling? I didn't answer him. I was weighing my options, and it was clear to me now that I was all out of them. I had no choice but to use it. I just had to pray I could control myself while I did. Tell me one thing, Daikon. Please, I grumbled, trying to calm myself before transforming. Growing up, I would listen to that damn pod tape over and over, and I could never understand it. Understand what? Why send our children to other planets? Do Saiyan parents really care so little about their kids that they just ship them off and forget them? Is there no kinship or love where we come from? I honestly didn't care too much for his answer. I just needed to keep him talking while I caught my breath. Daikon stared at me and burst out laughing. What nonsense is this? He laughed. Do you want to know if your precious mommy loved you? We are a warrior race. What place do such things have for us? When we are born, we are judged by our initial power level. Then we would be raised according to that judgment. Love has nothing to do with it. It's about honor and pride for our race. The strong would be trained and groomed for glory, while the weak would prove their minor worth by conquering a lesser planet. And if you died in the process, clearly you weren't fit to call yourself a Saiyan. Daikon sneered. So why do you ask, Tomiki? Miss your mommy and daddy, little boy? Do you want to know if they loved you bunches before you die? I smirked and shook my head. No. Honestly, I don't really care all that much about my Saiyan parents. I have a mother. She loved me. She loved me enough that she gave up her life to save mine and help me awaken my real power. I began to release it. My power began to flow off of me steadily but slowly as memories of my mom filled my head. You keep going on and on about birth and power levels, about this elite versus lower class bullshit. That's not what makes us different, you bastard! Daikon's smile was suddenly fading. His scouter was screaming and flaring up rapidly. Golden energy was bursting around me. What's with your power level? Daikon gasped, touching his scouter. It's rising rapidly. What are you doing? The difference between you and me is that I have people who care, and I love them. Without them, I wouldn't even have found this power. So I'm gonna settle this. I'm gonna take you out so that you won't hurt them. I finally forced out my rage and power, my hair spiking, turning gold, my aura erupting and flaring to life like a roaring fire. Daikon's scouter exploded off of his face as it struggled to keep up with the rising power level. What the hell? Hosha froze as his own scouter went off in his helmet and began picking up something massive. He spun to face the source and stared at the number on his screen in disbelief. 800,000. 900,000, 1 million. It won't stop climbing. It's that same power that killed Volkan, I'm sure of it, he cried. What's going on? Faye demanded. Something happened, didn't it? Ren asked. Tomoki's in trouble? I don't know, but whatever's going on, it's incredible, Hosha growled. He turned around and glared at the remaining evacuees. He didn't have time for this. If Tomoki was in trouble, if Daikon had summoned up some hidden power, he had to get there and help. We need to wrap this up and go support Tomoki. Hurry, Hosha instructed. We'll be there in just 4 minutes, Ren cried, sprinting towards the fray. While the group worked to move things along faster, Faye's mind kept drifting back to Antoinette. Where was she? She couldn't be far after all. What are you doing, Antoinette? What's your plan? Daikon was shaking in both rage and shock. The golden aura leaping off of me was intoxicating, and Daikon, even without a scouter, could feel it. This isn't right. You're a legend. It's a stupid legend. You can't be a Super Saiyan, Daikon roared. The Super Saiyan is just a dumb legend passed down on our race. Nothing but hogwash and rumors. I glared at him, my power growing stronger and sharper, as was my hate. Daikon let out a howl of anger and charged me. I'd rather die than acknowledge you as my better! Daikon charged me and struck hard with his closed and vicious fist. I raised my hand and caught his wrist as easily as he'd caught mine earlier. That's fine with me, I sneered. I knocked his arm aside and hit him hard in the face and followed up with a kick to his sternum which shattered it. He rolled backwards and landed on his feet, blood dripping from his mouth. He fell to his knees, and I moved fast, kicking him hard in the chin. He flew backwards and crashed into an apartment building as the foundation couldn't withstand the strike. He managed to rebound, part of his armor broken off at the shoulder, and his eyes were filled with hate. You bastard! Don't you dare talk down to me, you low-class scum! Daikon roared, firing a giant ki blast from his hand. I dodged it and returned one of my own. He leapt aside just in time and began shooting a volley of ki to follow up. I knocked him aside and flew towards him. Daikon tried to maintain his ground, but the closer I got, the more he was sweating. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. He was starting to realize it. This wasn't an illusion or a trick. I was a Super Saiyan. He flew out of my reach and began breathing heavily. Running scared, Daikon? I asked, feeling my inner Saiyan pride surfacing. I quickly tried to force it back down. I couldn't afford to let that rage and arrogance out now. Not yet. Daikon was furious and he charged me again. I charged back. We began exchanging strikes and blows rapidly, but no hit he threw touched or resonated. But each one that I landed felt good. I liked it. Yes, feel that fear, Daikon. How does it feel to meet your match? No, you're superior. Take that elite blood and shove it up your ugly ass. I'd make you eat every one of those words. But there it was again. That Saiyan anger, that Saiyan pride. Fight it, Tomiki. You have to fight it back. You can't give in to that. But then again, why not? It's what you need to beat him. And doesn't it feel good to destroy your enemy? Daikon threw a fast kick only for me to dodge and strike him across the jaw. He jumped away and I moved fast behind as if he was moving in slow motion. Now do you understand, you piece of filth? I snarled at him, repeating his own taunts to him. The same ones he'd said to me earlier. He threw a backhand strike and I snapped his wrist with my hand. He howled and I grabbed him by the face, slamming him into the earth. You're a weakling, a low-class piece of shit, a waste of a warrior, and a disgrace to all Saiyans. Don't you mock me, you... His roar never finished as I stomped on his face and slammed him to the ground. Don't speak back to your betters, I hissed, before kicking him away from me. Daikon rolled to his feet, fear and despair in his eyes. But he wasn't the only one afraid. I could hear my own voice, my words, and this wasn't me. Stop. I need to control myself. Remember who I am. Are you ready to die, weakling? Not quite, Daikon sneered. In fact, I just got an idea. Come on. Come get me, Super Saiyan. Daikon spun around and began flying away towards the city center. I took off after him, wondering what had changed. Daikon wasn't the kind to run away this quickly. What was his plan? I couldn't let him have his way, but the further we got to the center of town, the more civilians there would be. Well, what did that matter? They were just civilians. Just humans. Humans that would get in the way of our fight. No! Stop that! Stop thinking that way! I have to be careful how to regulate my power. I had more power than Daikon now, but I couldn't afford to be reckless with it again. Why not be reckless? Go wild. Destroy him. If a few die, it's worth it. Stop! I was getting more and more afraid of this. This is what I was afraid would happen. What do I do? How do I stop thinking like this? If I couldn't get a hold of my Super Saiyan power, this bloodlust, Daikon wouldn't be the biggest threat to Shan City anymore. I would be. And that covers the chapter. All right. Next is a Monster Club. I'll go ahead and get an image set up, and we'll go from there. Let's see.
Let's do this one. Awesome. So for those who couldn't understand what was going on, essentially, Tomoki is not fully in control of his Super Saiyan form. His Super Saiyan form draws out his inner Saiyan bloodlust, like his inner Saiyan desire for battle. And he hasn't fully managed to get control of himself when he's in that form. When he's in that form, he becomes reckless. He just wants to fight. He wants to hurt. He wants to destroy. And he wants to dominate. That's why he's afraid of accessing Super Saiyan. It's not because it doesn't make him more powerful. It's because he's worried that it'll go to his head and he'll become something dangerous. So he has to activate Super Saiyan to beat Daikon, but he's already starting to feel like his inner desire to do harm. He's trying to get a hold of himself. Raven, what level of destruction is Boalok? Hulk level or Thanos level? We'll talk about that later. Alright, well next is Monster Club. Let us get started. We left off on Monster Club chapter 49. Let's see how we do. Ba-doop-bop-bop. Night had fallen, and everyone was gathered around inside the tire warehouse. In the middle of the circle of freaks was a small fire that Annie had started for them. She now sat in Abraham's lap, sleeping silently. He looked around at the others who sat in awake silence. "Okay," he began. "So, I think it's time I fessed up," he said. "There are a few things y'all should know." The entire room was now eyes on Abraham. Well, firstly, I'm Solomon's grandson. Some of you already know this because I told you earlier, but, well, there it is. Did Solomon know? Tamil asked, genuinely surprised on his face. "I don't know if he did or not, but it really doesn't matter right now," Abraham grumbled. "What does matter is that, well, I'm not good at this leader thing. We need Michelle and Asher back. Since none of us know how to do that, I brought in the group from the farm to help." Christina and Alex both gave nods. "So what we need to do now is figure out how to save Michelle and Asher." "We know where they're at," Katie pointed out. "There's an old insane asylum west of here, about 15 or so miles away. It's where they kept me for a while, and I'm pretty certain that's where they're held up." "Well, there's a problem. Insane asylums, by their very nature, are designed to keep things out and in, right?" Christina muttered. "Not necessarily," Penn acknowledged, sitting on Alex's shoulder. "Asylums are designed like prisons. They keep inmates in. I doubt the Dawnbringers would expect a monster assault on their base." "So you're suggesting we just run up and attack it?" Calypso asked, shocked. "That's insane." "I'm with the fish on this one," David nodded. "We don't have weapons or armor or anything to help us beat him. And even if we did, we'd never get inside." "Well, thank you for the vote of confidence," Penn growled. "Maybe we don't need to," Sarah spoke up, looking to Abraham. "What if you turned one of us in?" "What?" "Tie one of us up and take us to them. They'll let us inside, and then when the doors are open, we storm the place," Sarah offered. "They might be expecting it's a trap," Alex shook his head. "Not likely," Kitty huffed. "The Dawnbringers treat us like animals, barely capable of human intelligence. I doubt they'd actually foresee a Trojan horse strategy like that." "The bait would have to be good enough, though," Abraham pointed out. "Plus, it would have to be someone who could cause a sincere amount of damage once they're inside." "Well, you could take me," Alex offered. "I ain't no stranger to a brawl." "No way," Tori cried, waving her arms angrily. "You're the second in command." "Who decided that?" Sarah giggled. "I mean, he is, isn't he?" "I kind of guessed he was," Tori said. "It doesn't matter who's second in command," Abraham pointed out. "And no one really is in command as it is, right?" "Abraham is in command," Katie snapped. "Why? He admitted himself he wasn't good at it," David growled. "Watch it, I'll make glue out of you," Katie hissed. "Katie, calm down," Sarah whispered. "David, would you stop being a pain in the ass?" Alex snarled. "All of you stop!" Abraham shouted, waking up Annie with a fright. "Just stop! All of you, just stop it! I can't think with all your arguing!" The room fell silent, and Abraham rubbed his aching forehead. I don't want to put anyone in danger with this plan. Just one mess up and everyone could be killed or worse. Abraham, I hate to say it, but risk is part of leadership. We're ready to take the risk. We don't have a choice at this point, Sarah explained. Well said, Christina smiled. Besides, we're all ready to do our part. You're not alone on this one. Abraham looked around at everyone, and with the exception of Annie, who was still groggily trying to stir herself, they were all looking at him and smiling. Abraham smiled back and looked at them. Then you'll back me up with what I decide to do? He asked. Within reason, of course, Alex laughed. But yeah, you got us. Abraham nodded and looked down at Annie. Then I have a plan. It's a bit complicated, but it might work. I'll take Sarah and Christina with me to deliver you to the Dawnbringers. Why us? Christina asked. Sarah looks the scariest out of all of us. No offense, Sarah. None taken. I'm used to that, Sarah giggled. So they'll have a harder time looking past her scariness when we get there, Abraham added. Christina, I want you with us because because they may not know you're a Gorgon. If you can pass yourself off as human, then they may let their guard down around you, which would be helpful. If they don't know you're a Gorgon, then the worst they'll do is restrain you. There are worse things, she shrugged. While I'll wear a hoodie to hide my hair. What about us? Katie asked. Penn is going to ride in my shirt, Abraham answered. Once we're inside, he's going to find out where they're keeping Asher and Michelle and let us know. Well, I can do that, sir, Penn saluted. Meanwhile, Tori will be in the air and provide reconnaissance from above. Alex, Katie, and David will, Abraham sighed, rubbing his head. Damn, I'm not sure there'll be any openings for you to get inside. What do we need? Some plastic explosives, David laughed. To do what? Tori asked. Keep up, bird brain. He wants us to blow a hole in the wall and run in guns blazing, David scoffed. The problem is that we can't, without a way in. There won't be any cavalry coming in to save you. Well, that could dampen our plans a little, Calypso giggled sadly. All right, so I could do it. Everyone paused a moment and looked down at Annie, who had her hands up like a child wanting to answer a question in a classroom. Could do what? Abraham asked. I could make a spell that blows up the wall. You can? Tamil gasped. Why didn't you tell us before? Kitty demanded. I didn't know you needed it, Annie replied. It's easy. Well, there's our answer to that problem, Alex laughed. Annie blows a hole in the side of the wall and we enter through that. How far do you need to get to cast the spell, Annie? Abraham asked. About from here to those tires. She pointed across the room to a stack of tires. That's about 15 yards. Won't you get hurt? I want to save Michelle and Asher. I can handle the bruises. No, I'm not putting you in harm's way I'll cover her, Alex answered. Minotaur skin's pretty tough, and I endure enough doing yard work. I think I can take a few rocks to the back. I don't want you getting hurt either. Trust me, a few rocks won't go to crack that thick skull, Penn teased. But what if you get knocked down? You're probably our best chance at overpowering the Dawnbringers. Alex and Christina both looked at each other in surprise, and then they began to laugh. Penn and David just shook their heads smirking, which to everyone else's confusion. They all looked at each other. Kid, if you think I'm your best chance of getting at those Dawnbringers, you are sadly mistaken, Alex laughed. No, when they burst through the wall, the one you want at the front is her. Christina pointed across the circle to Jelly, who was busy drinking a bottle of water and making noises by squeezing the plastic and giggling at the crackling sounds. Wait, Jelly? Abraham asked. Jelly's here, Jelly called out, hearing her name. She is a real monster, David snickered. Those losers won't know what hit them. But will she know what she needs to do? Katie asked. I mean, no offense. But I'm not sure she's... Okay, I'll just say it. She's a complete idiot. Oh, she knows it, Penn added. Jelly, would you say that you're intelligent? Nope, Jelly's still learning things, Jelly noted. But how do you feel about fighting? David followed up. Jelly not afraid of a fight, Jelly giggled. Jelly protect the family. Well, there's your answer, Alex shrugged. Trust me, you can't go wrong with her. Abraham looked at Sarah and Katie and smiled as they all shared a shrug. Okay then, Abraham agreed. When Sarah, Christina, and myself are all inside and Penn finds where our friends are, we'll try to get word to you somehow to blow the wall. If they throw the alarm, that'd be a great signal, Katie explained. If a monster ever tried to escape, they'd throw an alarm for all the guards to rush in and restrain them. Happened the first time I tried to escape. If there's an alarm system, I can probably trigger it, Penn answered. I'll trip the system and give the signal after I find the vampire and werewolf friend of yours. And after that, Annie will blow the wall. Jelly will go in first and get the guards' attention. Alex, would you mind helping? Ain't a problem. David, I need your help too. I need you to carry Calypso on your back and get her to where Asher and Michelle are. If they're injured, they'll need immediate medical treatment. And, well, Calypso's our expert. Don't make me blush, Calypso giggled. What about us? Tamil asked, waving. Katie and I do not have job to do yet. We wanting to help. Sure, while we're inside, Sarah will try to leave some silk behind to mark where we've been. Katie, you and Tamil will slip inside from there. Find the silk and we'll lead you to us. Once we're all reunited, we'll all work together to get Asher and Michelle out of there. Great, Katie nodded. I've been itching for a chance to get back at those assholes. When you're all inside, can I do anything? Tori asked. Whatever you can do would be appreciated, Sarah smiled. So when do we get started? David asked. Tomorrow, Abraham answered. Tomorrow. All right, then let's get some sleep, gang, Christina called out. David, I need you to give me a lift to the store so I can buy a nice hoodie for tomorrow. Yeah, sure thing, David said, and Christina got up to leave while the others turned to find a place to rest. Abraham watched them go and looked to Annie and Katie. Mind getting everyone in bed for me? He asked. What are you going to do? Annie asked. I need some air. He carefully lifted Annie off of his lap and stood up as Katie helped Tamil and Calypso to go find a place to rest. Abraham stood up again and walked away to the stairs to go stand on the roof for a while. He needed to get away from it all for a second, just to catch his breath. Out on the roof, Abraham leaned out on the railing and stared at the stars that began to appear in the sky, twinkling merrily down at him. He shook his head and silently groaned to himself. Was this how it felt for Michelle and Asher all the time, coming up with these crazy ideas and plans and leading everything, even though he had a pretty good suspicion none of it would work? Are you okay? Abraham spun around to see Sarah standing there, her deep red eyes gazing at him concerned. You ran out of there like a bat out of hell. I don't want this, Sarah. I thought moving in with everyone and becoming part of the club, I didn't know it would end up like this. No one should ever be asked to do this kind of thing, Sarah admitted. But sometimes we have to, and everyone here believes in you. If you want the truth, I'm scared, Sarah. I am too, Sarah agreed, walking closer and wrapping an arm around Abraham's comfortably. She gently pulled him into a hug and smiled. But it's going to be okay, I promise. As he was hugged, there was a moment that Abraham felt, his whole body going weak as he leaned into her. Did she bite him? No, his knees were just giving out from exhaustion. It's okay, Sarah assured him. I don't want this to end, Sarah. I don't want to lose my family, Abraham whispered. I always dreamed of having a family, and now that I have it, I can't lose it. I won't let it go. I know, Abraham, Sarah smiled. Abraham and Sarah stayed like that for a while, nearly falling asleep, until Abraham realized that Sarah's grip was tightening. What's wrong? Nothing, just... Sarah wasn't speaking clearly now. She was crying. I don't know. I don't want to be alone again. I love everyone in this family, too. We love you, too, Sarah. But what you said back there was true. I really am the scariest one here. If I'm alone again, if I don't have this family, I'll be feared again. I'll end up back at that freak show, back in a cage. She began to cry harder and sniffing loudly. I can't, Abraham. Please. No, don't think that way, Abraham demanded. You're not scary at all. Sarah, you're beautiful. You're the sweetest and the most kind one out of all of us. You were the one who vouched for me when I joined and stood up for Annie, too. He held her tighter, not knowing the right words to tell her. You mean everything to us, and if the world can't see that, then you really are too good for it. Sarah didn't answer, but just hiccuped and hugged Abraham tighter, the two both lamenting the pain of solitude. We've got to save them, Abraham. We need them back. We need our family back. And that was chapter 49. On to chapter 50. All right. Chapter 50, written July 22nd, 2018. I forgot how old this story was. Crazy. All right. Fear gripped Abraham like a frozen claw. It slowed his steps, and it took a gentle nudge from Sarah to keep him walking. He was holding her arm, her wrists bound in rope. She had a few false bruises and cuts on her that Calypso had helped place on using makeup and dirt. She had her hair hanging freely, and she faked a limp in a few of her legs. She tried to look in pain and was, frankly, a terrible actor. She occasionally slipped little giggles and shivers of excitement at the prospect of getting one over on the Dawnbringers. "Sarah, stop," Christina hissed, walking on the other side of Abraham. She had her sunglasses on, her hands bound in Sarah's own silk. "You need to act like you're defeated and scared." "I'm sorry, I'm so excited we're finally going to save Asher and Michelle." "Not if they know what we're up to," Abraham admitted. "Maybe this was a bad idea." "No, it's a fine plan if Sarah would act like she's been captured." "Well, how do I do that? I can't not be a little excited." "Here, let me help with that." Christina stopped and moved between Abraham and Sarah. Swiftly, she kneed Sarah in the gut, causing Sarah to cough and lean forward. "Christina!" Abraham gasped, forcing Abraham to pull her back. "Christina!" Abraham gasped, forcing Abraham to pull her back. "Ow!" Sarah coughed. "There, now you look like you're hurt," Christina snapped. "This isn't a game, Sarah." "I know that," Sarah replied, gritting her fangs. "That wasn't necessary," Abraham growled. "No, it's okay," Sarah nodded, standing up straight again and forcing on the pain. "I needed it. Tears help sell it, right?" Sarah asked. Christina nodded, and Abraham, too, her arm again as he walked them towards the asylum that now acted as the base of operation for the Dawnbringers. "All right, there it is. Let's do this," Abraham whispered, feeling himself sweat fiercely. Sarah groaned, having a bit of trouble breathing normally from Christina hitting her. Even though Abraham was pissed at Christina for doing it, it did help. Sarah wasn't smiling or fighting back her excitement now. She looked in pain. Christina was acting perfectly, however, looking genuinely frustrated and angry, though maybe it wasn't acting. "Abraham, you have to look mean, hateful. You need to act like we discussed you." "I know that." "Then get aggressive. Forceful," she hissed. "I'm not a bully." "For God's sake," Christina whispered in anger, but she fell silent as the three of them finally reached the pathway to the asylum. Standing outside of the door was a single man with a shotgun in hand and a bandana on his face. He took a step forward as he saw them approaching and readied his gun. "Who the hell are you? Where'd the freaks come from?" "I'm sick of these things," Abraham snarled. "I figured the best place to take them was to the Dawnbringers." "Asshole!" Christina hissed, while Sarah faked tears and bit her lip. "Monster," Abraham countered. "The spider bitch was part of that bigger group. Where are the rest?" the bringer asked. "Took off to the woods after I nabbed her." "They put up a hell of a fight when we tried to take them," he muttered, raising an eyebrow. "I'm surprised they didn't try to keep fighting you." "You kidding?" Abraham laughed, knowing what to say since he'd practiced several scenarios. "Without that vampire and werewolf to save them, they're not all that tough. I mean, the only one who tried to fight back was the snake, and I shot her dead before she could touch me. You can check the woods yourself if you want." The Bruin looked from him to Sarah and then at Christina. "And what about her? I don't recognize her." "She's a Gorgon. Don't take off the sunglasses. Took forever to tie her up," Abraham pointed out. "You caught a Gorgon? Damn, kid, you interested in a job with us? That's not half bad. Look, I just want a normal life, and I can't get that living with freaks like this," Abraham snapped, feeling the heart ache with his own breath. The bringer snorted and nodded. "Fine, follow me. I'll put him in a cell, and the boss will want to have a word with you. I'm sure she'll want to reward you." At last, he unlocked the doors behind him and led Abraham and the girls inside. Now things would get interesting. The first phase was complete. Now for phase 2. As the door behind them closed, a small fairy flitted out of Abraham's shirt and took off into the hallway and began his hunt for their missing friends. "You made the right decision, you know," the bringer muttered. As they walked through the asylum, Abraham couldn't help but notice a remarkable emptiness. Where were all the guards? The soldiers? The men? "Where is everyone?" Abraham asked. "Probably at their day jobs. This job don't pay much, as you can imagine, if anything. Most of us have other jobs besides this one, or families we go back to. It's Tuesday, so it's a work day. Oh, but don't worry, kid. No one's escaping. We got about 20 armed boys wandering around waiting to put lead in any freak that tries to break out." Abraham nodded as Calypso and Sarah looked around in disbelief. There were cells with large bars, others with plexiglass doors and windows that allowed them to see inside. Most were thankfully empty, but there were some that were indeed occupied. A dog-like boy was in one, chained to the wall and panting heavily. In another was a dryad, a nymph made of wood and leaves. She was laying on the ground asleep. In another cell there was a minotaur like Alexander, slamming his fist against the wall in vain to get out. There were so many different kinds of creatures locked away. Abraham could have sworn he'd seen a dragon amongst them, but he couldn't be sure. But all these cells were missing something important. Something Penn was searching for, but he couldn't wait any longer. "Hey, the vampire and the werewolf.
What do you do with them? I don't see them on display. Those two? Didn't want to give up without a fight, he laughed. We put the vampire in solitary and just left him there. No food, no blood. Hopefully he's starved to death by now. As for the werewolf, well, she's down here. Abraham and the girls were led further down the hall until they came to a large room with a bizarre lighting. The doors were chained and barred heavily, but the lighting inside was unlike the normal fluorescent bulbs. What's with the light? Christina asked. The bulbs in there are specialized bulbs our organization designed personally. They perfectly replicate lunar rays. They ensure a werewolf can't return to human form. Abraham's blood ran cold. He looked through the window into his horror, chained by the neck to the walls by no less than 3 different chains. In her full wolf form was Michelle. Her eyes were closed and she was breathing heavily. Her body was covered in blood and bruises like she'd been attacking herself. In fact, Abraham was amazed she wasn't currently gnawing at her own chains. Sarah couldn't look. She covered her eyes and looked away immediately. Why is she like this? It's an experiment, the bringer explained. She's the first werewolf we've ever taken alive. We want to see what prolonged wolf form does to them. Will she stay that way permanently? Will she lose her mind even in human form? We need to know, so we're going to keep her that way another 48 hours and find out. Abraham felt his fist clench tightly in rage. He wanted to hit this monster, kill him for what he'd put his poor Michelle through, and how calmly he talked about it, like it was just nothing. Anyway, let's keep going. The boss is this way. He walked Abraham, Sarah, and Christina a few hallways further before stopping. 2 more guards stepped forward from in front of a large steel door and took Sarah and Christina by the arms to lead them away. We'll make sure they're put in a nice, safe cell, they laughed. As they were taken away, the leader opened the door for Abraham to walk in. It was a huge room, which appeared like a dining hall of some kind, though now it was rebuilt and remodeled as a massive office space. Inside were several desks and one set up to the back where a woman was working. In the far corner was a man in the shadows watching. There were a set of cells to the far left and only one had a light on. Hey, boss, the guard spoke up. This kid dropped off the Drider and the Gorgon for us. Says he turned on his club. The woman looked up at him and then smiled. Is that right? An excellent decision, young man. Thanks. There like a reward or something? Abraham asked. There could be. She looked up at the guard who let him in and shoot him out. He ran out quickly as if afraid and then closed the door behind him. When he was alone, standing before the leader of the Dawnbringers, she smiled slyly and placed her head on one of her hands. So, what's the game, Abraham Singer? She asked. Abraham blinked and looked at her in disbelief. How do you never underestimate my information-gathering techniques? First, let me introduce myself. My name is Molly Hondershot, head of the Dawnbringers, and you're Abraham Singer. But you're the grandson of one of the largest monster sympathizers our organization has had to deal with in a long time. So what? Abraham growled through gritted teeth. So you're clearly not here to surrender. You're after something. Your friends, maybe? I'm greatly curious how you're going to free them, especially when one hasn't been in her human form in almost a week, and the other's barely alive. Asher? He's over there, boy. She pointed to the cell to the left with the light on. Abraham sprinted over to the cell to see inside, and what he saw made his insides crawl in disgust. Laying in the corner of the cell, his body shriveled and pruny and his hair white as snow, was what could only be a starved Asher. His red eyes had sunk into his skull, so only the glimmering red pupils could be seen amidst the white mess of hair on his head. He was half naked, showing bone and skin. His mouth was open, breathing heavily as he twitched and moaned. Asher! Asher looked up at Abraham, and his eyes widened as he saw him. Asher! Asher, it's me! It's Abraham! Get away from me! Asher roared, throwing his whole body against the floor in agony. Get away! Can't fight it! Fight the thirst! The thirst! He screamed. Abraham backed away in horror as he watched Asher bite his own hand in savage hunger. He hasn't had blood in ages. So seeing you and your healthy blood must have sparked his thirst even harder than before. I'm surprised he didn't throw himself at the door to get at you. His self-restraint is incredible for such a young vampire, Molly shrugged. You can try opening the cell for him if you want, but he probably will just attack you in his thirst. Best you let him rot away in there. Abraham spun around and ran at her in a blind rage. You twisted bitch! He screamed. Out of the shadow shot a figure tall and bald. It was pale in complexion, and it grabbed Abraham by the throat and tossed him into a desk with a resounding crash. Thank you, Drake. Molly smiled. Just doing my job. Think I can drink him? Drake? Abraham asked. Drake Cross? Yeah, I remember you too, boy. On the bus, right? I was after the witch then. How is she, by the way? You're Asher's father. You're his goddamn dad. I was, he replied. Look at him, Abraham cried. He's dying in there and you're just letting it happen. He should have died when I bit him the first time, Drake answered passively. If you think you can make me cry over a spineless little runt like him, you're mistaken. I'm sorry, you'll have to forgive Drake, Abraham, Molly sighed. The poor dear isn't like you or I. He's a monster. A vampire whose stance on life is built on who gets eaten and who doesn't. To us, we're simply his food. Asher was simply too weak to survive, no different than a crocodile eating its own young to live. We're not crocodiles, we're human, Abraham screamed. Correction. You are human, Abraham, she laughed. Asher and his father are vampires, and I am a witch. This time it was Abraham's turn to look stunned. Wait, you're a witch? Not so loud, dumbass, she ground. I try not to let the other Dawnbringers know that. She returned to her desk and sat down looking over the papers. But why? You're like them. You'd be persecuted by the Dawnbringers if they ever found out. The Dawnbringers are foolish human men who get a glimpse into their dark closets and realize the monsters inside are very real. They lash out at that reality with fear and superstition, slaughtering that which goes bump in the night, even if it's harmless in every respect, Molly explained. For centuries, they fought the forces of the supernatural with undaunting perseverance, so taking them over was simply a means to ensure my own survival. As long as they continue to believe I'm a normal human woman with an impressive ability to track down monsters, then all is well. That's why the club feared Annie. They said witches couldn't be trusted. They turned on humans and monsters alike, Abraham cried. You're exactly what they were afraid of. And that's why Drake was accepted into the Dawnbringers. You let him join. It's animal nature, she chuckled. The strong survive, the clever endure, and the foolish fade, and the weak are eaten. She then turned her attention back to her work. So what's your game? Just use the Dawnbringers to wipe out and exterminate other monsters? You could be helping them. If they were strong or clever, they wouldn't need my help, would they? They could evade me quite easily. Your club was able to do that for quite a while, until you came along. You quickly weakened them down, didn't you? Abraham felt a twinge of guilt run up his body and into his mind as he realized she was right. All their problems began when he arrived. I guess they weren't strong enough or clever enough to rid themselves of the weak link in their chain. She finally snapped her fingers. Without warning, Abraham was lifted into the air as if on invisible strings, held out for Drake. Ah! Abraham cried. Drake, she spoke up, enjoy your meal. Abraham winced as he watched Drake draw close to his helpless body. Damn it! Damn it! Suddenly, before they could do anything else, there was the sound of a massive explosion, and the sound of rockets and grenades going off. Alarms were going off across the entire building. What the hell? Drake grunted, nearly thrown to the ground by the sudden oncoming force of a rumbling building. Was that an explosion? Molly gasped. Who tripped the alarm? Abraham collapsed to the ground, Molly's concentration on him wavering. He just smiled in relief. Just in time. Do your thing, you guys, he groaned. And that was chapter 50. All right. Now we got to do one more. Reanimated. That's a story I've not heard in a long time. Long time. All right. All right, down to the last story of the night, and then we take a break until next time. Hope you guys have enjoyed.
All right. Let's do this thing. Let's wrap this all up. We're on to Reanimated. We're on Reanimated Chapter 7. Let's do it. Fernando led Max out of the office and down the hall. In his hands was the radio and receiver. It was still tuned into the station from earlier, which still droned on its automated message. They ignored its noise and rushed to the empty school back to the cafeteria. They threw open the doors and slammed them shut behind them. Upon their return, everyone looked up with expectation. "What news? What did they say?" "Calm down already," Fernando shouted. "We got in contact with an officer on the outside. He said that he would contact us again when he had a plan for us." "And how long will that take?" Tom asked. Fernando sighed. It will take some time." The entire room went stiff. Time was not something they wanted to waste. Max could feel eyes on her. She instinctively stepped behind Fernando and her hand twitched to her pistol. "No one lays a hand on the girl," Fernando barked. "We're under orders to not let..." As he spoke, there was a thumping at the kitchen door. The room went silent, and they all stared at the door. Max looked at the others and wondered what was up. "What's..." "Guess we didn't get all of them," one of the teachers whispered. Fernando stood up and walked to the door. "I'll deal with this." He left Max behind and grabbed a hatchet sitting on one of the tables. There was blood on it. Max turned away so she didn't have to see what happened next. She heard a sickening crack and a low moan, and then a heavy weight hitting the ground. Soon the door was locked shut again, and Fernando came walking out. "Which one of us?" the mother asked. "Eddie," Fernando answered. The entire room went somber. Fernando turned to Max. "Remember how I said you didn't want to know what we did with the bodies of the ones who got bitten? Well, we stashed them in the freezer back in the kitchen. Some of them we didn't finish off." Max felt a little sick to her stomach and sat down at a table. The only sound was the faint sound of the radio next to them. Suddenly there sounded like static on the radio. Max turned to look at it, but soon realized there was no static. "It's raining," one of the children said. Max looked out the window and saw that a steady downpour had arrived and was drenching the earth in its blanket of water. The group broke apart and they all went off to different parts of the room. Fernando walked to his table and sat down. The father and mother and child went to a table at the far end of the room and held each other. The teachers and their students stayed scattered around the room, walking here and there. Tom was pacing the room, looking here and there, mumbling to himself. "You okay?" Max looked up to see one of the kids standing near her. She nodded. "I'm fine, thanks," she said. The boy sat down at the table and didn't take his eyes off her. It made her uncomfortable. "Is there something you need?" she asked. "Do you really think we can get out of here?" he asked. "My daddy says that we might not have a chance." Max didn't have an answer. Could she really make it out of this? Was there any hope at all that anyone in the city would survive? "I don't know," Max said honestly. "We have to try, right?" The rain picked up, and the windows pattered with the sound of the falling water. The pounding seemed to only make everyone nervous. The boys got up and ran back to his family, and Max was left alone. Fernando shot her an encouraging grin, but it was hollow. Nothing behind it. She got up and began to walk around her table. She set her bag down and hugged herself as she prayed. She prayed that something, anything might happen. Something did. The sound of a great pounding filled the room. The children screamed and grabbed each other and the adults near them. Tom leapt to his feet and looked around. Fernando was not far behind him. "What the hell was that?" Fernando roared. "It came from outside," one of the teachers screamed. Everyone turned and there was a figure outside the door. It was leaning against it, slowly banging on the glass, trying to break through. "It's just another one of those monsters," Tom snarled. "The mob must be coming back." As he spoke, the figure was joined by more. They wandered around aimlessly in the rain, pushing and bumping each other blindly. The doors were barricaded, but that didn't seem to make anyone feel any better. Their moaning and groaning from outside was getting louder, beginning to mix with the rain. It was a haunting and eerie sound that shook everyone to their core. The children began sobbing and running to any adults nearby. Tom, who was trying to maintain his cool, was starting to get fidgety and jumpy. Max was shaking too, and deep down she had a cold and dreadful thought enter her head. If the mob had returned to the school this quickly, then that meant that Gabriel hadn't led them very far. Which meant that Gabriel was... "Hello? Hello, does anyone copy?" Fernando and Max flew to the receiver, ecstatic to hear that voice again. "Oh, thank goodness," Max cried. "Sir, there's a large mob of those things just outside." "Bear with us, miss. We'll try to get you out of there as best we can," the lieutenant said darkly. "I have informed my superiors of your situation. Unfortunately, we have no way to reach you. You'll have to come to us." Max and Fernando both looked at each other in shock. The rest of the room was listening in too, but nobody dared breathe.
Come again? Fernando asked. Sending in a strike team or helicopter to pick you up would attract all the zombies in the area to our location and only make the LZ too hot for approach. Then what the hell do we do? Fernando shouted. Our only option at present is for you to make your way out to the emergency exits and meet our rescue team waiting for you, Lieutenant Gress responded. I'd recommend you move immediately as the downpour now will provide decent cover for you. We can't do that, Fernando barked. There's a mob of those things just outside our door. We'll never make it past them. One of you might be able to slip past them, Lieutenant answered. We shall provide an opening in 5 minutes. We shall provide a bombing run over your location and draw the dead away from you. When that happens, you will make your way out of the school and to our location at the emergency exit on the south side of town. But the south side is so far away, Max cried. I'm afraid you'll have to make do. My superiors aren't being very cooperative. I'm lucky to have even acquired a bombing run for you. And what about everyone else here? Fernando asked. I can't make any promises. Our first priority is that vaccine's safe arrival to us. I wish there was more I could do. If you want my advice, I would say that you should maintain your current location and hold out for the military to commence operations in your area. How long do I have to get there? Max urged. My superiors have agreed to hold off the purge for up to 1 week's time. But after that, there's nothing I can do. Purge? Fernando demanded. What's that? There was a loud pause over the radio. No sound could be heard, but there was a faintest sound. A last resort protocol for a worst-case scenario. The only reason we haven't instigated it yet is for the sake of that vaccine. I urge you to make your way here as soon as possible. The urgency in the lieutenant's voice was beyond bone-chilling. It was clear that whatever this purge thing was, he didn't approve of it. But it sounded like it would do more than clear the city of zombies. I'll get going at once, Max said. Take a radio unit with you when you go. I'll try to get in contact with you later. Over and out. The radio turned to static and went dead. The entire room had a moment of silence for the silent radio. Now the only sound was the pounding rain outside and the soft moaning of the zombies wandering around. Well, I guess I need to get going, Max said. She turned to grab her bag, but then stopped when it wasn't where it was supposed to be. Where'd it go? Max turned around to see Tom angrily. Give it back! Tom, what the hell are you doing? Fernando roared. I don't have it, Tom defended. That's because I do. Max and Fernando all spun around to see the father standing in the far corner of the room. In his hand was the bag, and he was looking at the vaccine, safely tucked away in it. His eyes were gazing at it hungrily. Eric, give that back to Max, Fernando reasoned. Who are you to tell me what to do? Eric snapped. Honey, please. No! I'm not dying here. I'm not gonna die because the military's getting greedy. This is our salvation. This vaccine can save us. Didn't you hear what Max said earlier, you idiot? Fernando shouted. There isn't enough for all of us. There's only a single dose. Well, then maybe it belongs to the person who was smart enough and quick enough to snatch it away before the rest. Perhaps it belongs to the one most fit and willing to live, he shouted. You've lost your mind, Tom roared. Max was quite shocked at Tom's response. If anything, she'd expected Tom to be the one talking like this, but instead he looked more composed than anyone else right now. If you take that, then we're all dead in a few days' time. They just said on the radio that a purge was waiting for us. I don't know what that is, but it can't be good. Well, to hell with all of you. You just want it for yourselves, Eric shouted. Max wasn't looking at Eric, though. Something was moving in the shadows. Something had managed to slip in undetected and was working its way behind Eric. Slowly. Fernando saw it too, and a horrified look flashed across his face. Eric! Eric, behind you! Shut up! Eric shrieked, his hands shaking violently. Eric, get away from there! I'm done taking orders! I'm done listening to some goddamn janitor who doesn't know the first thing about surviving an apocalypse! I'm making sure I make it out of this in one piece! You are really loud. Suddenly the figure grabbed Eric and kicked out his legs from under him. The figure's arms wrapped around his neck and held on tight, slowly suffocating the struggling and groaning Eric. Nobody dared move near him as the two struggled. Eventually, Eric began to calm down until he eventually fell limp and unconscious, the bag rolling out of his hand. The figure leaned down and picked it up. Someone missing this? He asked. The figure stepped out and everyone gasped. He was dripping wet and his clothes were plastered to his skin. There was blood on his jacket and face and his arms hung weakly by his sides. Strapped to his back was a long katana. Gabriel! Max squealed, running to him and throwing her arms around his neck. Gabriel stumbled and nearly fell onto his back as she threw her weight on him. Ah! Easy! I'm not doing so hot. I thought you were... I was beginning to think... I told you I'd be okay, didn't I? Gabriel laughed. Max teared up and hugged him tighter. How did you survive? She asked. Well, that's a long story, Gabriel said. But what about all this? I slip in through the roof and you have a whole posse here. What's going on? That's a long story too, Gabriel, she giggled. But we don't have time to share. We need to get out of here quick.
because time is running out. All right. That was chapter 7. Moving on to chapter 8. You get a drink. Chapter 8. What are you talking about? Gabriel asked. I just got here. I thought we were safe. Max shook her head and sat down on the table. We got in contact with someone. A lieutenant, Max explained. Gabriel sat down and listened to every word. Max recounted everything that had happened since he ran off. She told him about the radio and Lieutenant Gressett giving his orders and where they needed to go. As he listened, Gabriel nodded and frowned, thinking everything over. Okay, so we have a limited amount of time to get this vaccine out of the city. And to a specific point, Gabriel asked. Yeah, Max said. Gabriel turned and looked at everyone else. What about them? We're going to stay here, Fernando said. The rest of us would just slow you two down. And if we want to get out of here quick, you two need to be fast. Thank you, Fernando, Max squeaked, tearing up slightly. We'll leave right now. That could be an issue, Gabriel said darkly. The Horde followed me back. They're probably crowding around the walls trying to find a way in. At this information, the whole room seemed to develop a cold shiver. I tried to lose them, but there was nothing I could do. We're safe in the school, Tom said, but if you two are going to get out, you need to find a safe exit. Any suggestions? Gabriel asked. Tom looked down at his feet. He didn't have any ideas, and neither did anyone else. They were at a loss. Perhaps you could use a fire escape near the office, Fernando offered. It's near the back of the building, and you come out of the opposite side of where you need to go, but it might be a little more clear. A little clear, Gabriel laughed. You must not have seen what I was running from, sir. There is no little. Then someone has to get their attention, Tom said. What attracts them? Max offered. Food and loud noises, Fernando said darkly. Suddenly one of the teachers jumped to her feet. You there! Boy with the sword, come with me. I have an idea, she said. Gabriel looked at her puzzled, but then nodded and climbed to his feet. He rushed after her, and they disappeared into the hallway. The others sat around quietly, waiting for whatever it was they were doing. Fernando watched the outside window as the rain was still hammering. Okay, the teacher returned. Gabriel was behind her, carrying a plastic, life-size human skeleton that was often seen in science classrooms. What's that for? Tom asked. It won't distract the zombies. It will when we're done with it, she said. Fernando, go look in the back of the freezer and gather some raw burger meat. Fernando's eyes brightened and he nodded. I get it. Tom, come with me. He got up and ran to the freezer with Tom right behind him. Gabriel set the skeleton down on the table and waited. Soon Fernando and Tom came back, arms full of raw red meat. They quickly began throwing it on the skeleton and covering it from skull to toe bone with the meat. We'll throw it off the roof of the building and scream as loud as we can. The smell and the sound should lure those things over, the teacher said with a smile. Well, let's hope they go for it, Fernando said. He then glanced up at Gabriel and Max. You two get ready to run. If one of us shouts run, that means that you're safe to get out. If you don't hear that sound, then don't leave. All right, Max said. Fernando handed her a radio and smiled. Keep in touch, kid. When you get to the outside, tell them to get their asses over here. I promise I will. Just leave it to us. Hey, kid. Max turned to see Tom lifting the now smelly skeleton. I'm sorry about, well, you know. Max nodded in response and grabbed her bag. She didn't need to answer him. Gabriel took her hand and led her to the kitchen door and out of the hall. Fernando and Tom followed behind with the skeleton, but rather than turn toward the office, they turned to the janitor's closet where the ladder leading to the roof was. Good luck, they whispered, before running to go do their job. Gabriel and Max stood ready for whatever sound came their way. Gabriel? Max whispered. Yeah. I really missed you, she said. I thought you'd been eaten. Nah, he chuckled. I won't die that easy. I'm worried, Max finally admitted. I'm scared that I won't live through this, that we'll get bitten and eaten, that we'll never see my mom again. Gabriel put his hand on her shoulder. In my experience, the first key to survival is a refusal to die, Gabriel laughed. Let's start by wanting to live through this and work our way up from there. You're right, but Gabriel? What now? Sorry, just thank you. You could have run off and abandoned me here, made your way to an emergency exit in the city, but you came back. I try to keep promises I make, Gabriel said, although his tone of voice wasn't encouraging, but more as if he were being accusing. I know how it feels to have someone just up and disappear on you after they made a promise. Gabriel, are you all right? Gabriel suddenly stopped himself and sighed. Max, Run! There was no more time to talk. Gabriel took Max's hand and made a mad dash for the door. Max followed as fast as her legs could carry her. Gabriel threw open the door and the rain beat down on them.
It was a little hard to see, but they could make out slight shadows and shapes, and they realized they weren't totally clear. Max could make out at least 6 zombies near them, lumbering around. Max raised her pistol to shoot, but suddenly Gabriel grabbed her wrist and forced her to lower the gun. "Don't!" Gabriel hissed. "The sound of the gunshot will draw others here. Keep running, and I'll take care of anything in our way." "I'm gonna need another weapon," Max growled. Gabriel rolled his eyes and pulled her along with him. "We'll go shopping later. For now, move it!" Gabriel snarled. Without another word, Max trailed Gabriel through the rain and in the muck. 2 zombies caught sight of them and started to make an attack. Gabriel disposed of them quickly with his sword, not even slowing down. The few others that had seen them started following, but others were left behind as Gabriel and Max were moving too fast. Max coughed and sputtered in the rain and worked her legs to the breaking point to maintain Gabriel's speed. "We need shelter," she noted. "No kidding. I know a place that might work. Just keep running," Gabriel hollered back at her. Max complied and fought harder to run, but her legs were protesting and she was beginning to slow down. "Gabriel, slow down," she pleaded. Gabriel turned and looked at her. He dashed to her side and knelt down, having to shout over the rain. "What's wrong?" "I can't keep up. My legs are tired," Max sighed. She winced, feeling weak and pathetic compared to him. If he thought any less of her, he didn't show it for a second. He reached out and lifted her up onto his back, piggyback style. Max wrapped her arms around his neck, too exhausted to argue. "Just hang on. We're only a mile away now. Have your gun in your hand in case we run into trouble." Max reached into her coat and pulled out the gun again, ready to shoot. Gabriel took off in a slow trot, making sure that Max didn't let go or lose her grip. "Why do we need to keep running? I think we're safe." "The rain is covering our scent, but it also muffles their own sound and smell, and it's harder to see them. The longer we're stuck out here in this weather, the more dangerous things will get," Gabriel explained. Max couldn't help but stare at him for a moment, taken aback by his level-headed approach and his odd understanding of strategy and evasion. Was he really just a street urchin, or was there more to Gabriel than he let on? It was no secret that Gabriel had his own secrets, but there was something about him, and Max endeavored to find out what exactly it was. Soon Gabriel pointed up a road into a small blue house. Max took a look and smiled at it. Gabriel made a run for the door and set Max down on her wobbling legs. He then shoved on the door and forced it open. He held it for Max, who took off his wet jacket. "This is the place," Gabriel said. "I suggest you get dry." "I didn't think you had a home," Max said. "Well, it's not mine," Gabriel corrected her. "It belonged to this old couple who would give me food every now and then when I camped out in this part of town. There was a bedroom upstairs, and some nights when it was cold out, I'd sneak in and sleep in that room, and then sneak out the next day." "Isn't that breaking and entering?" "Yeah, but I don't think they were too upset about it." "They knew?" Max laughed. "Pretty sure they did, because every so often I'd wake up to find toast on the bedside table and fresh sheets on the bed." "So what happened to them? They didn't die, did they?" "They did. But not because of this outbreak. They died years ago," Gabriel assured her. "But the new people who moved in after them weren't as hospitable towards me as they were, and before he asked, they were killed in the outbreak." Max lowered her gaze slightly and continued taking off her hood. "I see. So the house is open to us?" she asked. "For the night. Tomorrow we'll need to make our way out of here to the emergency exit," Gabriel said. "There's a shower upstairs if you want to warm up." Max glanced upstairs and nodded. "Thanks." "No need to do that," Gabriel interjected. Max nodded and hurried upstairs to go clean off. Her body was shaking slightly from the cold, and the sound of the rain outside was impossible to ignore. But there was now a slight bit of normalcy to her life. A home, a roof over her head, a shower, a friend. There was sanity within the madness at last. If only it would last the night. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our reading for tonight. Go ahead and take that down. Well, guys, I hope you all enjoyed. I had a good time. It was good to come back to reading all this. I'll need some time to work on the next 2 Tale of Tomaki chapters. It's going to get really intense in these next 2 chapters, guys, because it's going to be Tomaki fighting through both of them, I believe. So it's going to be nuts. But then after that, we will continue on with Monster Club and with Reanimated and with Helping Hands. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm still thinking about my plan for what to do with these streams and whether or not I'll use them for just doing audio reading. I don't know if we'll do the next reading on Monday or if we'll have to skip another week, but I will let you guys know. Thank you guys so much, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.